Take your time, son. Take your time, boy. You gonna play? Is it doing all right? Because some of y'all got excuses. But I've been waiting in the back all day long to play this guitar. Can I take my time? Can I take my time? That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. Boy, you better watch yourself. How about a hand for Brother Daquan Bowers?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we about to bring the young man to the stage who really needs no introduction. He is uh, a great person. He was a dynamic football player. He's a great guitar player. Man, without further ado, welcome to the stage, Mr. Daquan Bowers. Give him a great big hand, great big hand, great big hand.
I appreciate that, brother. Glad to be here with you tonight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, how everything going with you tonight?
Man, I'm good, bro. Just taking it easy, enjoying some off time from football and just relaxing with the fam. How you doing, though? Everything good?
Hey, I can't complain. I'm still here. So
Right.
every day I got a chance to get it right and do better, I'm gonna do it.
Bro, I'm with you.
All right, man. We ain't gonna hold you because I know you said you got to get ready to travel. So let's hop right on into it. So give us a little background about yourself from a little boy. Like give us your, your start.
So obviously, grew up in a music household with my father. Dennis Bowers, who was a guitarist for Tommy Ellison and the Five Singing Stars. My whole life, he started with that group in 1979, and I came along in 1990. So, he had already had his footing and kind of a reputation for himself, but just grew up under those guys and listening to them and traveling with him. Fell in love with music, and obviously at an early age, I started playing sports. And, by looking at me, you can tell I wasn't the same size as everybody else in my class. So, I just started off playing baseball and then football and then basketball. And once I got of age, I figured out football was going to be my sport. So I dedicated most of my time to football and a lot of my time to music as well. I started playing guitar at about 4 or 5 years old and started with a little local group called Richard Jameson and the Morning Stars of Glory from Orangeburg, South Carolina when I was 13. And that was the first time that I went outside my house and played guitar, because until then my dad wouldn't let me go out and play in front of anybody because he felt like I wasn't quite good enough. So I was in all those years just practicing and grinding. And then finally at 13, I started, traveling locally with them and playing for a church in my hometown of Bamberg, South Carolina.
Okay. So what all instruments do you play?
I started out on the drums. Drums is probably my favorite instrument, but guitar, bass, and I played the tuba in the band when I was in the 6th and 7th grade, and then had to let it go because of football later on. But yeah, that's about it.
Wow. So around how old were you when you knew that you were pretty talented when it came to music?
I really didn't know, because I'd been in the shed practicing all those years. And then when you start to travel locally, you start to see other people playing, and you're like, okay, well, I'm okay. I can hang with them because I'd always traveled with my father, so I was always around professional musicians my whole life, and I knew I wasn't that. So when you get on the local scene and you start to see guys that you can play with a little bit and you can hang with, starts to build your confidence a little bit. But I don't think probably 16 or 17 when I started traveling with the Singing Stars is when I was like, okay, I can do this at a legit pace with everybody else.
Okay. So what really came natural to you first? Was it the music or the sports?
Honestly, it was both. I was so wanting to be a singing star my whole life that I was, 6, 7 years old, sitting in front of the VHS tapes, practicing for when I got the opportunity to come on stage. And obviously my dad being who he was, I got the opportunity to learn from him and study up under him. But I say they came hand in hand, and the older I got, the separation started to come. My father let it be very well known that football was my deal and music came second. So that's kind of how it always stayed. Football was always first and took up most of my time. And then whenever I had some downtime, music came next.
Wow. Okay, so what type of guitar did you start out playing on, if you can remember?
Oh man, absolutely. I was probably 5. My right after my 5th birthday for Christmas, I got a Sunburst Squire.
Wow.
$9 guitar, electric guitar that came with the amp.
Yeah.
Played that thing for years and years and years and years until it finally got, I got a little too big for it. Then my father bought me another Squire, a red and white Squire, and I was about 10 or 11.
Wow. Do you still have it?
I do have the red and white one. It's at my mom's house. I do have it. I still have that one.
Okay. I know you still probably like to pull it out from time to time, don't you?
I do. Every time I'm down there, I'll sit around and just strum it. It takes me back to all them hard nights and days when I was getting fussed at for not doing the chorus.
Right. So what year did you start in sports? Like what grade did you start?
So I actually started sports when I was 6. Obviously, Pop Warner football, at the age of 6. I started baseball, coach's pitch at the age of 6, and I just knew I was going to be a baseball player. Baseball was kind of my favorite sport, and I was really good at it. Played third base. I played baseball all the way up through high school, and that's kind of when football started to take off for me, going into high school, and I was like, okay, I can really do this on a big stage, and started to get a little notice from colleges and things like that. And my sophomore year of high school, I stopped playing baseball to focus fully on football and track and all of those aspects to be a better football player.
So if you could do it over, would you pursue baseball?
You know what? People ask me that all the time, and I probably wouldn't. I think I was pretty good, but it's doggone near impossible to make it to the majors at that level. I have friends that have done it, and I hear the horror stories, but you've got to be very, very, very good to be at that level and make it continuously. So I think I chose the right route.
I believe you did too. Okay, so once you got to, let's say, um, uh, did you ever get? Okay, yeah, I put it like this. Did you ever get cut from any sports teams?
No,
Never got
no.
cut.
Early on in Pop Warner, there weren't any cuts. I always played, with the older group because obviously I was a big dude growing up. And then in middle school, I start coming into my own so I can hang with the best of them. So I never ever got cut from anything.
Okay. Did you win any championships in school?
No, never won a state championship in football. Our basketball team wasn't really that good while I played. Uh, the best championships I got were coming up through Dixie League baseball. Going to the championships at the 12U and 13U level. That was about it.
Okay. So why it's on my mind now? What is your what's your opinion and take on AAU sports?
I think it's a great tool to use, uh, but at the same time, you can't let that use the athlete. They can't use kids. At that age, kids are still figuring it out. Just my opinion. When I was 10, 11, 12, I wanted to play everything. I wanted to play as many sports as I could because, I'm from a country town. We go from one sport to the next sport to the next sport, and it keeps us busy year round.
Right.
Although I do understand, why parents would want their kids to specify in one sport. But I just think, that's an early age to kind of just say, this is what I'm going to do. That kid could have a growth spurt. That kid could, be something else. I'm reminded of a kid I went to high school with. When we went home for the summer going into 10th grade, he was 6'2". When we got back for, the fall for 11th grade, he was 6'8". So things like that happen. And it's like, well, he can be a pitcher in baseball at 6'8". Not saying that it can't happen, but, there's other avenues that kind of opened up for him, with this growth and things like that. But I don't knock any parents for keeping their kids in AAU and letting them specify in one sport. But, if it was my kid, I would let them do as much as possible and expose them to all the sports that they can be a part of. Because at the end of the day, sports is huge on growing. It teaches teamwork, it teaches leadership, it teaches discipline, it teaches a bunch of life skills, just being in those type of sports. So that's why I'm always appreciative of all the sports. But, I see why parents do it, but I wouldn't do it as a parent.
I got you. And you're right. Like I noticed from like I never did play like in school, but I did like rec league and stuff. But a lot of that stuff, and one of my best friends, he is like he coaches high school, and we talk about it all the time. Like coaches really help teach you like life skills. It's more than just like that sport.
Oh man, it's your rec league, your high school coaches, even college coaches, they have such an impact on your life and molding you to be the person you are. You know, they don't get enough credit, in my opinion. I've seen the high school coaches that have to go pick the kid up and take him home, or God forbid he don't have nothing to eat, and they give him $10 to grab something to eat on the way to the house or something like that. As well as like you said, the discipline, the life skills, the leadership skills, the being a man, all of that kind of comes within sport, and it teaches you team. It teaches
Right.
you it teaches you meekness. It teaches you all of those things because the old saying is right. There's no I in team. So there is a shared responsibility among everybody to get to a certain level. And I think, the best teams I've been a part of, they've been white, they've been black, they've been Latino, they've been all kind of orientations, and everybody gets along because we have one common goal, and that's to be great. And I think you can't get that many other places in the world with different backgrounds, rich, poor, black, white, whatever the case may be, besides inside of a locker room.
Mm. Okay. All right. Another thing, what's your thoughts? And I know a lot of people like see this from different angles. What's your thoughts on kids getting participation awards?
I get it. I get it. I'm all for participation awards to a certain age. I think once you reach kind of that pinnacle area that there's winners and there's losers, I think that's when it should be separated. Like my son, He's 6. He plays T-ball. They don't keep score. They don't do anything like that. They're just teaching the fundamentals of the game. Like, I'm all for participation trophies in that sense. But once the score is being taken and it's this team versus that team and everything counts, then I think it should be separated, and those kids that do the better job should be rewarded for that.
Right. Well, we in agreement. Okay, well, let's move on. When did you first start getting notoriety in football?
So, going into my 9th grade freshman year of high school, that summer, I went to what is now the Dabo Swinney football camp. Tommy Bowden was the head coach at the time. And I came to his football camp, like I said, 8th grade going into my 9th grade, and done such a job that they offered me a scholarship on the spot. And that was going before I ever played a down of high school football. You know, so that's when I was like, okay, I might be pretty good. And then, you know, back then, we have to make our highlight tapes. So my 9th grade and 10th grade year, I was making highlight tapes for a lot of guys that were being recruited, and myself as well. So I was making these highlight tapes, and our coach was sending them off. But everybody wanted to know who that big kid was at 3 technique, number 52, because my cousin Ricky Sapp was being highly recruited because he was an All-American in high school and things like that. So they were like, who's that kid playing opposite of Sapp? And then more eyes begin to, you know, come on me a little bit more. And then by the time I was a junior, it was just shot off, man. It was crazy. It was really neat, and it was a unique opportunity, you know, to have all these people and these coaches coming through my little town with one stoplight to see who the big boy from Bamberg was.
Wow. So let's continue on now to the good part, where everybody want to know. How did you become a member of the legendary Singing Stars?
So how did I become a member? So obviously, I grew up around this group my entire life, you know, from the days of crying on the porch in a pamper because I couldn't go on the road with my dad, to seeing Sam dropping back off on the way back in. And throughout my teen years, I couldn't travel with him except when it was summertime and help do the equipment because I was starting to lift a little weights. So I've been around this group my whole entire life. And then when I was about 16, Ellison couldn't make a show in Denmark, South Carolina. And it was just the 4 horsemen, Sam, Big O, my daddy, and the drummer, which was Mark McKinnon at the time. And my dad was doing most of the leading. So he had mentioned to me that he would maybe, you know, call me up to hold his guitar while he did some of the leading. But he obviously knew that wasn't going to happen. If I had that guitar in my hand, I was going to play, and I was just going to have to deal with whatever came with it later, because that's always been my dream. So, you know, Denmark, South Carolina, the Dane Theater, I'm 16 years old. I'm sitting in the audience, you know, and he calls me up to get the guitar. And I just stood in the back and played his part while they did their show and did their thing. And I'll never forget, you know, God rest his soul, Sam. Sam didn't really know that I could play like that. And, you know, Sam had these funny facial expressions, but I remember him looking over to me like, what? And I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I've been waiting on. And after the show, they were just saying, you know, we really couldn't tell the difference between your playing and your dad's playing. And that was the biggest compliment to me, because that's all I wanted to do was, you know, adapt his style and run with it and keep his legacy rolling. I was able to start that night, you know. So that was the first night I actually played with them. You know, fast forward maybe a year later, Ellison gets sick, and obviously he's got to come off the road for a while. You know, they were going around as the 3-piece with the guitars and the bass, and then I was going and spotting in when I could. Obviously in the summertime and when the shows were local enough and I can get back to school, I would go sit in, and my dad would do the leading, and I would do the guitar parts. Wasn't singing, wasn't doing number, playing guitar at the time, and that had to be around the end of 07 because I was still in high school. So 07 is when it kind of got more consistent, and then obviously 08, Tommy's off the road for good, and it kind of just took off from there.
Wow. Yes, I didn't even know he had came off the road completely around that time.
Yeah.
I thought he was still traveling.
So Ellison came off the road. I'll never forget. We were getting ready to do a blockbuster in Florence, or what? It might have been DMD's anniversary. It was one of the two. But he came on the road specifically for that show, and he wasn't supposed to. And I won't lie. At the time, I was a little hot. I was a little mad because I wanted to play that night. I wanted to be on the guitar that night, but obviously if Ellison's there, my dad fell back into his spot and the show went on. But he came back on the road specific night to do that show, and that ended up being his last show. He was hospitalized shortly after that.
Wow. Was he a pretty nice guy from what you can remember?
Ellison?
Yeah.
Oh man. One of the most humble dudes and great spirited people to be around. But the thing about Ellison and anybody who spent time with him will tell you, he held people accountable. You know, in this day and age, there ain't a lot of people holding a lot of people accountable because of how it may look, or they don't know how to do it. I don't know what the case may be, but it didn't matter who you were. You know, out here on the road, Ellison held everybody accountable. You know, and that was the biggest thing that always stuck out to me. He was always professional. He was always well-groomed. He was always in his element and doing what he loved, man. But super nice guy. He was like a grandfather to me. He would, you know, when they were off, he would come catch football games or whatever. And he always called me Junior. I don't think he ever knew my real name, but he called me Junior.
And I noticed, like, I never did get a chance to meet him, but I know a lot of people like in the quartet industry, like they kind of not mimic him, but I know he was a trendsetter from like the way he talked, walked, danced, everything on stage. Like I see a lot of people really hold him to like a high regard and respect.
Absolutely, man. I mean, he got that name, superstar, got a reason. You know, he was truly that. He was always, you know, like I said, he was always professional. And I think that's what drew the audience to him. He was always the same person wherever you saw him, wherever you met him at. And when it was time to hit the stage, you knew what you were getting with Tommy Ellison. You knew that he was going to be sharp, his group was going to be well-groomed, and they were going to be professional. And that's what's carried that group for so long. And like you said, they were trendsetters. A lot of the things that they were doing way back when, you know, that's become the norm for quartet and gospel these days.
Yeah, even now with 803 re-recording closer, like he's a trendsetter, man.
That just goes to show you the impact that he's had on a lot of people.
Yeah,
a lot of people love Tommy Ellison and they love the Singing Stars, but he had a bigger impact that he could ever know of, and I wish he was living to see, you know, the seeds that he planted for everybody else to kind of grow their crop now. It's really amazing to see.
Now, I know I put up a post a couple of days ago, and I want to get your thoughts. Do you think they could have crossed over into Southern Soul back in the day had they really tried?
I saw that, and I think they could, because that was just the style of music that they had, and the showmanship and the suits and all of that. They truly probably could have crossed over, and Ellison had those opportunities presented to him, and he turned them down. You know, so, you know, his love was in gospel music, and the guy's love was in gospel music, so he stayed the course, although he was presented numerous times to kind of cross over and go the other route.
He definitely had the material.
He had the look. They had everything going for themselves.
Right. The famous Singing Stars anniversary, man. What was your first experience of going to that show? How was that?
You know, they used to do anniversary in Charlotte at the Grady Cole Center when I was a young kid. So I got to experience it, somewhat on that stage back in the early 90s, but then obviously when I came about and I had a little more say so, I wanted to kind of keep the tradition going. So I just piggybacked off of what they used to do and tried to make it a gospel explosion and celebration for the Singing Stars. Obviously, my dad was gone at the time, Tommy was gone at the time, and we were trying to do something different. And I just wanted to keep the legacy going. So that's when I started, doing the shows in Denmark, and then obviously Columbia at the township and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So you were over those?
Yeah, I did those myself.
I never knew that.
I did the Sail On Superstar live recording. I did all the shows in Denmark. I did every last show in Columbia, and I did the last show in Orangeburg, which was kind of the one that broke the camel's back, if you will. Just a lot of things going on, people you couldn't trust in business, and because of my career and what I do, and I'm not really able to be hands-on like that, I felt like I couldn't trust people to do it how I wanted it to be done. So that's why that was the last one.
And to be honest, people never, if I seen it myself, if it's not really their idea, they ain't gonna really do it the way how you envision it, because it just be simple because it ain't their idea. And
absolutely.
And it's sad to say, but that's just how some people, they wired to think like that.
No question about it. And especially when you got people on payroll that you're expecting to do a job and do it a certain way, and it don't go down that way, you find out that they're making decisions that are going against the grain, or decisions that you didn't okay. And I'm not saying that I had, all the correct ideas and I was, Mr. Perfect, but my visions were working, if I should put it like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they were. Because I was actually at that anniversary, that the last one you did, and it was great. And I just never kind of really knew what happened, but I'm glad you were able to shed that much light on it, because
people I couldn't trust, man. And like I said, just being an athlete, and at the time I'm living in Tampa, I'm living in Florida, and I'm coming back and forth to try to do business and make sure things are straight. It just, at that point, people had started to do things that it wasn't sitting right with me. And I said that was going to be my last one until I had the opportunity to be more hands-on and do it the right way, like I wanted to be done again. And I got that itch back a little bit now to maybe potentially bring it back. So, but I'm praying about it. It could happen.
I hope so. I mean, hopefully in January next year we might know a little something.
But you'll know way before January.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Man, because that show right there, that would kick off the year, like, for everything.
And it's funny you say that. That was the whole reason that I chose that date. I date because it was kind of, everybody had their New Year's show. Everybody bought in the New Year, watch night, New Year's show, what have you. And that was kind of the boom, the first major big show of the year. And then right after that came the Reunion Fest in Albany. So, it was kind of bam, bam. And I picked that date for that reason. I felt like it was a great date because originally the Singing Stars anniversary was always Easter Sunday.
Wow.
It was always Easter Sunday. And the group wanted to keep it Easter Sunday. But as a business person, I'm looking around like, that's a crowded date. Right. I want a date. Everybody wants to migrate. Everybody wants to come to one spot. I don't want picking and prodding about what show they want to go to. I wanted a dynamic lineup that's going to pull people from Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, North Carolina, obviously South Carolina, from New York. And that's what we were able to do, man. We had buses coming from New York. We had people coming from Florida. We had people flying in from California. It was truly amazing, you know, and it was probably one of my most, you know, treasured things that I did was giving those guys that platform. And not only those guys, but a lot of groups that didn't need that platform, but it was another opportunity for them, you know, and that's what it's all about.
Crazy thing is, I started with Roy in 2016. My very first show with him ever was that anniversary.
Wow.
My very first gig with Roy. You know, most people, you know, they probably want to let you start at that big, but he threw me out in the water. Yeah, and I mean, I enjoyed it too. But
yeah, that's a great opportunity to see where you're at as LSU, if you can stick it or not.
Yeah, that's the only way you're gonna know if you're ready.
Only way. It's different when you playing in front of, you know, 2,000-3,000 compared to 100, 200 people. It's a big difference.
Yeah. So I mean, I enjoyed it, and I know the next year I played for Tammy Edwards, and I think June and the Sign is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Tony Bush, y'all helped them out. So it was amazing, man.
Yeah.
And so what actually made you change venues? What was behind that? Or
just business. You know, I started it out at Voorhees College. Obviously, it's a Black college. Not a lot of people know about it. Not a lot of people know about Denmark, South Carolina. So I wanted to take it there because it was something that hadn't been done. So the first one we did, which was the live recording, I wanted to be, you know, in a nice enough spot to where we could get a bunch of people in, but I also wanted a nice venue that cameras could flow around and have the space to do what they needed to do, because we were planning on doing the video. And shout out to Gene Peoples, man. He's the guy that did that DVD for us. So I've been working with Gene since way back then, you know. So he and I collaborated, and we were going back and forth between South Carolina State and Voorhees College. And I was just like, man, I want to be closer to home as possible. You know, Tommy's from Wagner Sally, South Carolina, which is only 15 minutes from where we shot that. Sam's from Elko, South Carolina, which is only 15 minutes the opposite way from where we shot that. I'm from Bamberg. My dad's from Bamberg, which is only 7 miles from where we shot it at. You know, at the time, Justin Mickens was here. He's close to home. He's only about 45 minutes to get down there. You know, so it was just, you know, that of wanting to, you know, that country feel, but also want to be on property that we celebrate as a Black culture and community.
right.
Everybody does something at South Carolina State, but you know, there hadn't been a concert at Denmark Tech or Voorhees College, I know at that time, in probably 10 years.
Well,
and then it just kind of blew up. So, you know, going back to what I said about why I stopped, you know, having people you trust trying to take care of business and putting people you love and you want to, you know, support in leadership roles, you know, things don't add up always. So that's why I'm like, I'm taking everybody out of the equation. I'm going to go to a professional venue, and nobody's going to have access to nothing but me and my specific team. So that's why we end up going to Township. So I didn't have who was on the doors. I didn't have to worry about who was coming in the back doors. I didn't have to worry about the ticket sales like that. I took all of that out of the equation. All of that out of the equation for those couple of years. And that was probably the best run that we had.
Right. And it's sad, man, that you even have to think about that kind of stuff, especially with family, because you would think they would want to do right, especially if you paying them, and I'm sure you paid them pretty decent to do what they was doing, but it's just, I don't know, man. Some about our people, they just got to always try and find a way to get over some kind of way.
learned that. I had to live through that.
Yeah. But I mean, you made it through, and so now, if you do it next year, which I'm hoping you do, you know exactly how to move. So
No question about it. You know, just watching other people, and at that time, I had never done a show. You know, I had never done nothing of that magnitude. You know, I knew about Quartet and the culture. I had more people that, you know, my financial advisor, my business manager, those type of people were like, okay, does it make sense? Does this make sense? And that's where they brought their, you know, expertise. So it had to make sense for us to do it, unless you lose money. And that's not the business I was in. Still not in that business. You know, you want to make amount of money, but if you break even, that's fine. But you don't want to lose. And that's where they came in hand. And then I had obviously people that, you know, move in the Quartet community that was selling tickets, that knew how to get in access with churches and get them tickets and things like that. And there's just a lot of hands that I couldn't watch and keep tabs on. And the people that, you know, my financial advisor and my business manager, they didn't feel comfortable, you know, making those demands on my behalf because they felt like they weren't the boss, if I'm being honest. You know, and I wasn't always able to be reached and get on the phone and make stuff happen. And people just kind of took that as a, well, I'm gonna do it this way type of, you know, environment.
Right. Well, I appreciate you for the years that you did do it, because you really made a difference to the Quartet community for doing that. Especially, like I said, jump starting off the year, it was humbling just to even be around and see everybody you want to see, all the stars you seen growing up. And
it was fun. It was fun. It gave us, you know, the younger generation an opportunity to spend time and build relationships with the older generation. You know, now a lot of those guys that, you know, I was able to have perform and work with, some of them not here no more. Even in my group, Sam's gone. You know, you think about Joe Ligon and the Mighty Clouds of Joy, he's going on. Think about Lee Williams, he's going on. You think about Rance Allen, he's going on. So having those opportunities to gel the new culture and the old culture of gospel, you know, that was priceless to me. You know, that's what it was all about.
Well, I appreciate you, man, for sure, because it really helped me out a lot. Yeah. So, if you can do it, well, I'm gonna say you're gonna do it next year. When you do it next year, what is your plans on? Like, what are you gonna do different than what you did in the past?
You know, I don't know that I would do much different. It's just I know what I'm looking for now. I have people, you know, that I can depend on and trust and lean on, but also close enough to where I can be more hands-on. You know, I'm not 9-10 hours away where I gotta, you know, jump in my car last minute or get on a flight to try to get to South Carolina to take care of business. You know, I'm in Clemson. I'm 2 hours from Columbia. I'm 3 hours from the lower part of the state of South Carolina. So just having that kind of access to be around and be accessible makes the biggest difference, in my opinion. You know, and just watching how promoters have kind of elevated the shows and moved the patterns on in the recent years. You know, looking at some of the biggest shows that happened, you know, in Quartet and in gospel, and just, you know, seeing what they did well and seeing how I can tweak it and make it my own and things like that. You know, they say a wise man learns from the mistake of others. So I've learned from my mistakes, and I'm watching others and how they move to see how can I tweak it to make it my own. You know, and that's all I wanted to ever do was, you know, make it my own. I didn't want to be like nobody else's show. I wanted to make it my own.
Right. And you did that. You definitely did.
Yeah. And I never put my name on it, ever.
That's why I never knew that you even had anything to do with it.
Put my name on it. Never, ever, ever. Never. It's always been Legacy Records, which is my management company, or something else. I've never put my name on it. I put my money in it, but never my because I didn't need the credit for that.
Right. And you know, some people would do that just for like the clout.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like,
and yes. I'm clout. I'm still not a clout chaser. I don't need that. I just rather be in the shadows, making sure everything running smooth.
Right. Okay, so let's jump around some. The NFL. No. Let's go back a little bit. How did you get recruited for college, and what college did you go to for the people that don't know?
So, like we were talking about, my junior year of high school is kind of when my recruitment just took off. Like, it, boom, went through the roof. So obviously I was taking visits and doing my due diligence. But, my senior year, my last year, I was just like in another atmosphere from where I even thought I would be. So when I finished high school, I was ranked the #1 player in the nation.
Wow.
So that out of millions and millions of high school players, about one was my name, Daquan Bowers, Bamberg Earhart High School. And that meant the world to me. Because not only was I getting, the pub for what I was able to do, but also my teammates and my town. Not many people knew about Bamberg before myself and Ricky Sapp came along to push that narrative. But, being the #1 player in the nation, everybody wants to know where you're from and how you did it and things like that. But I always knew where I wanted to go to school. It was just being about the perfect fit. Obviously I visited several schools and, enjoyed my recruiting process, but I knew that I wanted to come to Clemson. I knew that this is where I wanted to be and this is where I belonged. And they made it very, very well known about how they felt about me early on, by obviously being my first offer, because they put eyes on me first, if you will. But I knew that this is where I wanted to be. I grew up a Clemson fan. I grew up, dreaming about running down the hill and rubbing the rock and doing all of those things. So, I got to live out my dream, obviously, once the time came.
Wow. Did you make any bowl games while you played in college?
Yeah, I went to a bowl game every year. Obviously, like I said, I played for a man named Tommy Bowden, who was the head coach at the time, whose father was the late, great Bobby Bowden, who was a longtime coach at Florida State, national championships. He coached, Warrick Dunn, Peter Warrick, Deion Sanders, you name it. He coached all those guys, and his son was the head coach at Clemson at the time. So I signed, back then, it was kind of unheard of to leave high school mid-year. Now it's normal. Everybody does it. But back then, I left school, December of 2007 was my last week in school. And obviously I had some all-star games to play in. I played in the North Carolina, South Carolina Shrine Bowl. And then I played in the very first ESPN Under Armour All-American Bowl. And that's when kind of the #1 in the nation kind of happened on the big stage, just going down there in Florida for the week, dominating. But I played in that game like the first Saturday in January, and I started at Clemson like that Tuesday. So it was like bam, bam, just having that opportunity to go down there and then come into Clemson. Like I said, Tommy Bowden was the coach, and halfway through my freshman year, he gets fired. And this little man that was a receivers coach named Dabo Swinney is now the interim coach. And obviously you have relationships with everybody on the staff, but you kind of co-mingle with your own. So I was really close with, obviously, the defensive staff, but he took over as head coach, man, and he brought a new energy to us and kind of laid the foundation. And you can kind of see what it's gravitated and grown into now, almost 18 years later. But a lot of people don't know I didn't sign to come play for Dabo Swinney. I signed to play for Tommy Bowden. And he took over, and he gave everybody on that team an opportunity. I know you guys didn't sign to play for me, so if you want to transfer or whatever the case may be, I understand. And obviously he wasn't the head coach. He was only, the interim coach. They told me he had to the end of the year. So I think we had about 6 or 7 games left, and we ended up pretty hot. And he ended up getting, the job. And the rest is history, man.
Wow.
But to answer your question, sorry, my freshman year, We went to the Gator Bowl, and that's when I first heard of a man named Ndamukong Suh. He a dog. I'm talking about dog. So he won MVP for that team, Nebraska, and I won the MVP for Clemson as a true freshman going into the Gator Bowl that year, and we lost. The next year, 2009, we went to the Music City Bowl in Nashville, Tennessee, and it was probably 15 degrees out there. That's the first time I ever played in snow. And then my junior year, which was my last year, we went to Charlotte to play in the Meineke Car Care Bowl. And we lost 0-3 in bowl games as a player.
Wow.
It's, a lot of L's.
Yeah, but hey, you can say you made it.
I'm doing a little better on the coaching side now. Now I got a couple national championships, a couple ACC championships, so it's leveling off a little bit.
Right. Yeah, but you lived your dream. Like you got a chance to play, and then then you got drafted. Let's go to that. Then I'll come back to my point.
Yep.
Who drafted you?
I was drafted. I left school as a true junior. I still had one more year left that I could have came back to Clemson and played ball, but I decided that it was time for me to go on. That was the same year my dad died, 2010. So he died in August in training camp, and that following December is when I entered into the draft. So I was drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the second round and played 6 years for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Played my whole NFL career in Tampa.
Okay. And what year did you retire?
I retired officially from football in 2017.
Okay. I had a cousin. You may have ran against him a couple times. He played. He played for the. I know he played for the Colts one year. Then he played for Green Bay. Josh Gordon. You familiar with him?
Josh Gordon. No, not the receiver, right?
No, he was. Josh played. I think Josh was a DB. Yeah, he was a DB.
Yeah.
Let's see. Josh. Let me see. Let me see if I can pull something up on her. Gordy. Josh. Well, he is a little older than you, so you don't know him. Let me see. He retired in 2015. Let me find this picture.
So yeah, we crossed paths a little bit then.
This guy here.
No, I don't know him.
You don't? Oh, okay. Yeah, he see who he played for. Jacksonville, Green Bay, St. Louis, Colts, and the practice squad with the Giants. Okay. But yeah, man. So I've heard that a lot of the training that y'all don't do a lot of practicing in the NFL like that. Like it ain't really vigorous like people would think.
Not outside of training camp, you are getting it. They're trying to figure out, who they're keeping, who's going to be on the roster. The NFL, you only got 53 spots. That's it. You get 53 spots and however many practice squad spots. So they're trying to figure out, who they're going to keep on this team. And a lot of people don't know that, being the 53rd guy on the roster ain't necessarily a great thing, because at the end of the day, the kicker may stub his toe and he can't kick the ball next week. So they're going to bring in a kicker, and no matter what position that 53rd guy is, he could be the guy that's waived or cut. He could be an offensive lineman. It's just about roster spots and numbers, but outside of training camp, man, I mean, you get your work in, but it's nowhere near like people would expect. Once that season gets here, it's all about, game plan, fundamentals, and details. Hard part is not over, but majority of it is.
So what is a typical practice like?
It depends, in the league. Tuesdays is our off day. So our Mondays are Wednesday. That's how our week is set up. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So obviously if you're off Tuesday, you're gonna be in, training room, taking care of your body. You might get a lift in, you might do some, some prehab and rehab to start preparing for that next week. But Wednesday starts the week. You'll get in early. You may do the same type thing, get an early morning workout, 5:36, something like that, and get some breakfast. And you're watching film. You're watching film on the opponent. You're breaking down things, and you'll go practice. And it's only 53 people, like I said, on the roster. So it ain't like offense is going against defense. It's like, offense is giving defense a look while we're working on our stuff and things like that. Sometimes, the defense may be off to the sideline while offense is doing their thing, and then by Saturday, it's kind of put all together. So Wednesdays and Thursdays are your true work days. We used to call Fridays Fast Friday because everything's about speed. A lot of people don't know, but in the pros, you have to learn how to practice. Just because you don't have shoulder pads and all of that stuff on, the speed doesn't change. Speed never changes. You just got to know how to use your hands and be detailed like that. But, it goes from Fast Friday to Saturday, and Saturday is usually the travel day. So you're doing a quick walkthrough, maybe a light jog through practice, and then if you're traveling, you got to hit the plane and you're gone. There's obviously Sunday's game day. Monday, you come in, you kind of put it to bed, and then you move on.
Wow. To be honest, I don't think I probably couldn't do it, man, because it seems like it's more mental than anything.
That's 90% of football is mental, man. 90% of it is mental. The 10% physical. You got to get your body, calloused up to take it, but 90% of the game is about, game planning, schematics, and all of that kind of thing is done in the film room. Is me understanding tendencies, knowing what this quarterback likes to do, what this offense likes to run, and things like that. So you play the game, 5 or 6 times in your head before you ever touch the field.
Wow. So
it's the same with music. I bet you said your first show was the show in 2016. I bet you visualize yourself playing at least a couple of days ahead of time, just how you was going to sit, how you was going to play, all of that, visualizing the crowd and the reaction. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and then you go out and execute.
That's it. That's the name of the game. You prepare the same way. You rehearse, practice, you work on your craft, and then you go execute. And then after the game, you take a woosah, then you get ready to do it again.
The grind of it.
It's for sure.
So how did you have time to balance like in the off season? How would you have time to like choose between just taking time for yourself, or let's say the Singing Stars had somewhere to go? How would you navigate that?
You have an off season, but it ain't really ever an off season because you're always training, you're always lifting, you're always staying in shape. So Monday through Friday, that's what I'm doing. I'm in the gym, I'm working out, I'm eating good, I'm doing whatever I got to do. And then Friday night, Saturday, I'm hitting it. I'm going to meet the stars, the same. Sunday night when they say amen, I'm getting back down to Florida to do it all over again. And and that was the commitment that I had. That's what I was willing to sacrifice and do. I didn't care about, having weekends, not do nothing or anything like that, because at the same time, I was committed to that group. And I was committed to the process of, helping that group be successful. So Friday nights, Friday afternoon, when I got finished my workout, it's time to go. Whether that was, my uncle, nephew getting in the driver's seat, driving me to the next city, or me and my homeboy just hitting it and getting ready to drive up to South Carolina to meet the van to go wherever. It was whatever's necessary. Or sometime I just fly and meet them. It just all depends. But it took a level of commitment, because it was a lot of travel and obviously a lot of sleepless nights. But like I said, football was always number one. Music was always number two. So football always superseded, music. Whatever had to happen, football was gonna happen, and I would just have to make do with the music part on the back end, which is the same now as a coach. That's why I don't make shows in the fall. Saturday is game day for me. Fridays are Sunday. I'm working on the next team. So that's just the way my life is. Now off season, I'm with it. I'm with it. I got nothing but time. But come August is when I'm like, it's over. It's over with. I'm dialed in to football.
Got you. And old nephew, man, nephew was a character.
He was a true character. One of a
Yeah, one of a kind. I never forget my first experience with nephew. He was selling DVDs at the Swannies anniversary,
That's him.
and I got that thing, man. It probably played one day.
Don't tell me it's gospel.
Yeah, I think it was like videos he had got off of YouTube. And so when I got with Roy, I said, "Hey nephew, man, I bought a DVD from you, man." And I said I couldn't get it to work. He said it might didn't work. I don't know. Always, man. He was a good guy though. Like
For you, he was for you. But if
Yeah.
he you knew that mess with you. That joke talk to a slug.
man.
He could do it.
I think one of the last encounters I had with him, I was doing my best to avoid him. It was after the Gospel Legends anniversary because he had needed a ride. So I'm sneaking around trying to duck and dodge. He beat me at my own truck. He said, "Man, just get me to Augusta, man. I'll get home from there."
There you go.
So we ride and we ride and he claimed he called somebody on the phone. He was like, "Man, just going down a little bit further. I can't get him." We ride a little further. 20 more minutes go by. Man, he ain't answering the phone. I don't know who he was supposed to be calling.
He got you. You was off the house by then.
I was in Bamberg by the time I realized.
There you go.
Hey, but man, that was my boy, man. He would look out though. He would always make sure you fill my truck up, but you was gonna have to get him home some kind of way.
He was that kind of dude. He was gonna find a way to trick you, but he was gonna make sure you was all right.
Oh yeah. I miss him, man. Like I didn't even know he was sick.
Neither did I. Nobody knew. He didn't.
Right.
He didn't. Nobody know that, man. And,
Yeah.
That was him. He always kept stuff on to his chest. He never really wore his feelings on his sleeves, man. But that was my dog.
Oh yeah, for sure. So what do you have in store in the future? Like what do you see yourself like music wise, football? What do you think? What's your plans?
Obviously, man, I'm blessed. I'm extremely blessed to do both of the things that I've always loved, and that's football and music. When you retire from football or anything, you kind of want to know what the next steps look like. And as a competitor and as an athlete, my entire life, I was no different. It was hard to walk away from the game, but I knew that's what my body and my mind needed at the time. So being a coach, I'm still able to be competitive. I'm still able to, live through my players and watch them succeed. And at the same time, I'm able to pour into them the things that I've been able to learn and my successes and my failures and my life that I've experienced. I'm able to pour that back into them so they don't make the mistakes that I've made. And the same with music, it's always a challenge. Always a challenge. And there's always room for growth, man. So just trying to buckle down and I'm always wanting to do what's best for the Singing Stars. That's my motto. Whatever's best for the group is what I'm for. And like you said, it just got to make sense, But revamping, got to get a record out here sooner or later. But just kind of dialing back to see what we need to do to try to make that revamp, man. We've had some great ones stop through here. Justin Mickens, that's my brother. Me and Justin had a lot of nights where we was mad at the world because things weren't going our way when we was, playing and before he even started leading, and then God rest his soul, nephew and Sam said, man, we got to get that guitar from around Justin Neck and put him out front, and I think he was a little hesitant at first, but man, he embraced it. He embraced it, and he gave his group a breath of fresh air like we've never had. And he took this thing by the horns, and he laid the foundation for what has happened over the next several years. And I'm appreciative of him. And now he's doing great. The Mickens they're soaring. They're doing wonderful, man. And I'm so happy for him because we always knew that was his goal, to get his group on a bigger platform, and he's done it on an outstanding level, man. And they're great. They're awesome. They're doing great big things. And then obviously we transitioned to Michael Boone, and Mike came in and took right off from where Justin left off, man. And he did a great job, and he brought his own unique thing to it and spin to it. And when Mike came out here with us, he was still in school. He was, we had him sleeping in the room with Sam and all that kind of stuff, because Sam was like a father figure to him. So we wanted to make sure that he was under somebody who was going to care for him and do right by him and things like that. But we also knew we had to get back to North Carolina so that boy could be in school on Monday morning. His mom wasn't playing that, but Mike was a great asset. He was a great part of what the success that we were able to continue to have. And obviously he's off his own thing with another group right now. But man, we're just looking for what's next. We're just looking for what's next, whatever that may be. And it may take time to figure it out. We're kind of do some things right now, trying to figure out a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But, these guys are getting older. We only got 2 guys that were here from the beginning, so we just want to make sure they're comfortable. I just want to make sure that they're comfortable in doing what they're doing and they're enjoying it, because age is real. They're not getting any younger, and it's hard to rip and run up and down this highway, once you start to get up in age like that. Billy's 86. He ain't getting no younger, so the less we can take off him is the better. And he's all for anything. He's like a bull. He's strong as an ox. Just transitioning to a little bit of a different thing, trying out some new things just to see what works. And obviously, Ballard is doing a great job. He's sitting in and doing most of the leading right now, him and Billy. But, he's doing what we need him to do. He's doing whatever we need him to do to keep surviving and keep pushing. But we're going to figure it out and make some moves in the future. And I guarantee you we ain't going nowhere. We're gonna still be around. We're going to still be shucking and jiving a little bit for years to come.
Oh, yeah. I see Justin in the comments. He said, proud product of the stars. I learned from the best. Shout out to Justin Mickens.
It's my brother. Love you, brother.
Josh McKenzie said, let's go Clemson. Best D. Let's see who else I might have missed. Gwen Atkins said hello.
Hey, Auntie.
All right. Okay, that's pretty much all for the comments. So, brother, I sure appreciate you for coming on and chopping up with me, man. And I really appreciate you for taking time out your busy schedule to make this happen.
Man, anytime, bro. I really, really enjoyed it. I appreciate you having me on your platform just to tell a little bit about my story and what I got going on and, giving me the opportunity to shed a little light on my life. I appreciate that, man.
Oh, yeah. So if you could go back and tell yourself or anybody like a piece of advice, what would you tell yourself or anybody for that regard?
I just think you got to trust the process, trusting the process, and having people around you that's going to tell you the truth. That's big, man. That's huge. A A lot of times you see people with a lot of yes men, and I've had those type of people in my life as well. But you need the people that are going to sit you down and tell you, hey, man, this isn't right. Or, hey, man, you need to look at it this way. Just another lens to kind of see things through. You know, that don't mean you're going to always see it that way, but at least you have another perspective and another person that you can lean on when you're going through things. But just trust the process and whatever you're doing. Nothing easy comes overnight. If you want success, you got to navigate how to get to it, what that may looks like. The grind is the grind. You know, it never stops, and the route ain't easy. So whatever it takes is what it takes. You know, we have a saying, you know, you can dodge the responsibility of whatever you're trying to do, but you can't dodge the consequences of the responsibility. So if you want to be great, then you got to put the work in and lay the foundation. Faith without works is dead. So you got to put the footwork in, and then let God mold you to be what He wants you to do. Just listen for Him. He'll always be in your ear. If you truly have a relationship with God, He'll always be in your ear, guiding you. Now it's just up to you if you can hear Him or not. If you let the outside noise and everything else drown His voice out, then you're gonna never hear what He's truly got for you. And that's the hard part, because life be lifing. If I tell my that life be lifing, man, it's hard. Ain't nothing out here easy, especially not in 2025 with social media and cell phones and access to so much at your fingertips. You know, you really got to be grounded and rooted in something. And I'm grounded and rooted in the Lord, and I'm forever humble, and I listen for His advice, and I listen to His word, and I let Him guide my steps. And without Him, I wouldn't be where I am. So He ain't got to ever worry about me going the opposite way. What He's got for me, I'm going to listen to Him and try to go do what He says, because it's benefited me my whole entire life, and I ain't stopping now. Aspect. That's with football, that's with marriage, that's with the singing stars, that's with every aspect of my life. You know, he's been a constant voice, and I listen for it, and I trust it.
I got you. I'm sorry, I missed a question. Abronia Scott said, as a coach, when do you talk to young men? Let me see. As a coach, when do you talk to young men about their health and listen to their bodies?
You know, that's with any sport. You know, you got to know how to take, especially at this level, the college level and the professional level. Once you get to this level, you know, your body is sacred. So the things that you put into your body and how you treat your body, it's all going to come back around. It may come back around a year from now. It may come back 10 years. But at the professional level, you know, our bodies are our money makers. You got to really, really be conscious about how you do it, what you eat, what you put into your body, and getting rest. You know, all of that matters. You know, I tell players all the time, man, you can't stay up to 12 or 1 o'clock at night playing video games and expect to be a dog in workouts at 6:30. It don't work like that. Your body needs time to recover and rest, and you know, all of that process matters. But you know, the sooner the better. As soon as you can understand what your body is for and what it'll do, you know, the better off. Because one day your body ain't gonna be the same. I'm a testament to that. I'm 35, and some days I wake up, it takes me 10, 15 minutes to get out of bed because of what I put my body through as an athlete. But while I was doing it, I was taking care of my body as well. I was doing the things necessary to have longevity and the position I'm in now. So the earlier the better. If you can preach taking care of your body and what you're putting in your body, and I'm not talking about supplements, I'm talking about eating the right way. I'm talking about diet and, you know, cutting back on, you know, processed things and stuff like that, and eating natural foods and fruits and vegetables and stuff, the better off.
And I got to get back on that myself, man. Like you preaching to me now, because I was doing good at one point, but it's like as soon as you just decide to do one cheat day, you just fall off.
Preaching to myself. I had to constantly remind myself, man, it's hard. It's hard, especially when you get up in age, man. It ain't easy to drop them pounds like it once. So I'm constantly reminding myself of what I'm eating and how I'm eating and what I need to stay away from. It's just discipline, man. It's just discipline. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yep, that's it. Okay. Justin said he need that record from you.
He can have.
So I think we got it, y'all. January 2026, man. I think just keep y'all ears open. I think we gonna convince Daquan to pick back up where he left off.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
All right. Brother, you gonna do what you got to do, man. I know you got to hit the road, and you be safe out there, man. And we'll definitely be in contact with you. Hey, little man.
Hey.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate the opportunity, man.
All right, no problem. Well, we'll get up with you later.
All right, man. Y'all take care.
All right, you too. All right. Daquan Bowers, ladies and gentlemen, give it up. Give it up, give it up, give it up. Well, another great interview. I appreciate every last one of y'all for tuning in. Shout out to Daquan, man. He shed a lot of light on some stuff I never knew that he was even like the sponsor for the Singing Stars anniversary. So that was something new to me. Learned a lot. Just great talking to people, you know. We will try and be back next week. I got somebody special lined up, hopefully. I'm gonna keep y'all posted. I like to try and stick to a schedule, but like he said, life be life sometimes. So you just kind of do it how you do it and when you can do it. But I have somebody special coming, and y'all have been waiting. I've had people ask about this person, so this person's supposed to be coming on, and we're gonna have a great conversation. I ain't gonna give y'all a hint, but just know y'all been asking. And if anybody else y'all see that y'all would like for me to try to interview, let me know and I'll reach out. Inbox me. You got my number, text me, say, hey man, see if you can reach out to so-and-so, see if you can set up an interview. And if I feel like I can make it happen, I'll try it. Shout out to Trayshawn. He couldn't come on because he was at the gym doing what I need to be doing, working out like Daquan was just talking about. So this has been another edition of the Let's Have a Conversation podcast. I appreciate y'all, and we will be catching up with y'all later. Peace.